What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Anthony, and thank you for checking out my article in this month's Shutter magazine. This month, I'm talking to you all about why I think it may be time to consider switching to Capture One Pro. This is a phenomenal piece of software that fixes so many problems that we face as photographers when utilizing the monopoly that is Adobe Lightroom when it comes to raw processing. Now, Capture One has always been a really good image processor. It's always had a lot more features than Lightroom does in terms of like granular control. But over the last couple of years, they've added a few things to make your workflow significantly better if you are a wedding or a portrait photographer that photographs a ton of different pictures. Now, I particularly like to use what Capture One refers to as sessions. And the reason I like that is because each individual session, think of sessions as like a mini catalog that contains one particular job, right? And I like to use these because you can keep your session localized with your job in the particular folder. So if I need to ever go back and change an image from black and white to color, I can just click on the client's folder, open it up, and away I go. I don't have to worry about large catalogs or anything like that we have to deal with Adobe. And in addition to that, Capture One utilizes a standard folder structure that makes it really easy to organize your pictures as well. So let me kind of give you an idea of how all this works, right? First things first, what we're going to do is we're just going to hit new session. When we do that, we're going to go ahead and just decide where we want to save it. And I want you guys to see this. The way that I do this is I'll typically select the main folder, and then I'll name the session the same thing as my job name. And that'll create a folder inside of this main folder, right? So for instance, this is Johnson, right? And I'm going to show you guys right now, if I go to my engagements folder here, Johnson ends up showing right here, right? So what I'm going to do now is we can select a template, like we can create a template like for folder structure, but I don't want to do that because I want to show you kind of how this works, right? So right here, you can have your capture subfolder. So when you import your images, they're going to go into this folder. And the same thing works if you're tethering and shooting. Your selects folder for when you select your images, your output folder for when you output your images, and the trash folder for the stuff that you're going to delete after you deliver your final client album, right? Once you do this, you'll go ahead and hit OK. And what's going to come up is essentially a blank screen. When you import your photos, they're going to import into the capture folder, and we will be right where we are right now, right? So from here, what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of go through and cull your images as normal. And I just typically will go through like this. I'll select number one, right? Once we select all of our images, now we can come up here and we can go ahead and decide to show only the images that we selected. We can select all by holding Command and A, and then we just push Command J, and it's going to move all of those automatically into my selects folder. So it's just a really simple, really fast, and really intuitive way to organize your folder structure because it already pre-makes the folder structure and file tree for you, right? You don't have to do it later on. So now all your photos are in here, and you can go through and you can work on them. And when you're done, you're finished working on them, you can output them or batch process them, which you would do over here by selecting your process recipe. And when you do that, you're going to put them over into the output folder here. It'll automatically export them. So folder structure and getting through your files is a much faster experience when you're utilizing Capture One than it is with Lightroom, and that's one of the reasons why I like it, right? But let's get into some of the other features, okay? For instance, when we have a set like this and I have to, say, straighten a bunch of images at a time, I can select all of my photos, show them up at one time. I can come here, I can select my my straighten tool, which I believe is this one right here, and then I can go through and I can straighten, and I can straighten without having to go from image to image. As we know with Adobe Lightroom, one of the biggest problems is image to image develop time, time cycling from image to image to image. Well, this kind of negates that problem. You don't have to worry about that. The other thing that I really like about the workflow features here are that it's very simple to adjust colors and all sorts of things independently because you have the ability here to work in layers. Oops, let's get out of that. You have the ability here to work in layers, right? So it's really important to understand that you can get through your photos and you can do a lot more here in Capture One without having to go into Photoshop than you can with your, Lightroom, for instance, right? So going through this, a couple things I want to show you as well. We have all the same adjustments here that we have in Lightroom, but you do have a customizable workspace, so you can kind of move things around as you please. But let's go over here into the color editor. Now, Lightroom did add a similar three-way color gradient editor like this, but the one in Capture One is so much more advanced. You can select individual tones here by clicking like a button like this. It'll select here, and then you can just go ahead and adjust the hue of that particular tone. And let's just say I don't want it to affect the dress, right? Well, I can put this on another layer, and if I want to see what I'm doing, I can click this View Selected Color Range, and you'll see all the colors that are going to be affected. And if I want to adjust it, I can adjust it as well too, like that. So very, very easy to do a lot of different work here within Capture One that you can't necessarily do within Lightroom, okay? And the last thing I really want to focus on and talk about, aside from the things that were in my article, is the speed. Now, I'm working with a really fast computer here, but sometimes I work on the road, right? I'm on my laptop, or I'm on my computer at the studio, which isn't my production computer, and it's just kind of it's a base iMac Pro. It's not very fast for editing images. It's better for video, right? So the problem with Lightroom is that it doesn't make use of all of your computer's resources in order to produce better speeds. Now, it's gotten a lot better at that over the years, but it's still nowhere where it needs to be if you are editing hundreds of thousands of photos a year, right? It's just unacceptably slow. But Capture One doesn't have that problem. Now, Capture One is not necessarily faster on a faster computer like the one I use here in production. In fact, on my laptop, Capture One is actually really, really fast. It works excellent on my iMac Pro at my studio, which is just a base model. It's not really designed to be very fast. So I've noticed that Capture One tends to perform significantly better on lower power computers, on computers that are not Mac Pros, that are not 32 core processors, right? It tends to perform a lot better on those computers than Lightroom does. And I appreciate that, because then you don't have to invest in such an expensive computer in order to produce the photos that you want to produce. Once you are done with all of your editing and everything, you can easily rename and keyword and do all the same stuff that you can do in Lightroom, but it is a little bit easier. Now, I want to caution you, the first time you open this up, if you've never used Capture One before, it does take getting used to. It is not an easy transition. You can make it easy by adjusting your workspace to match Lightroom. So you can come over here under Migration, and if you click that, it will adjust your workspace to look like your Lightroom workspace. You can also take a Lightroom catalog and you can import it into Capture One. I'm trying to see if I remember how to do it here. I think you would do it under Import Catalog. You have to be in the catalog format, but you would do it under Import Catalog, and you would say Import from Lightroom. And then you can import your Lightroom catalog, and it will actually make the adjustments to your images. It's not perfect. It doesn't transition them perfectly over, but it does a pretty good job. So these are some of the reasons why I think it might be time to consider switching to Capture One. I think for us as a wedding photography studio, it's a no-brainer. For those of you who are doing portraits, it may be a little bit quicker for you as well too, but it's just something to consider as you move forward. And we always look to push the envelope and do better and better, and make our processes more efficient. That's all I have for today. Thank you guys for checking me out in Shutter Magazine. Catch you later.